So yeah, we still have a few more minutes. If some of y'all have a question already, we might start with something easy and smooth that not too many people might miss.
Just FYI, I hear you fine too.
Okay, that's cool. That's perfect. Awesome.
I'm just going to mute because I don't want to interrupt, but I'm interested in just listening in.
Okay, cool. That's perfectly fine, of course. So Ronnie, how's the show going? Is it
the kids are doing great. It's just like it is so full, and I think they have like 4 rings running at the same time, so you have that constant struggle with waiting for stuff and classes getting late.
Ronnie, what horse are we talking about?
We are at Southeast Medal Finals in Tampa at the moment.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy. Like, I really like what they're doing. So I'm happy they are so full. I'm not complaining about that. It's just, when you have a lot of kids going here. Like, I started at 5 in the morning, and the last class started at 7:30 this evening.
Perfect.
Makes the days a little bit long.
and then hours of hours wasted in the meantime in the middle.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's like, because you're always in limbo, it's not that you're like, okay, it's going to be late. I'm going to take a lunch break now. It's always when it's just like, we're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. And that almost there then turns into like, well, I could have done something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it goes.
If I'm free to speak, hunter jumper judge here, but I also do dressage shows, because I need them, and but it's just so cool that you ride at 352. Are you serious? And I wish there was a way to make that happen in our world. I think directly post COVID in many places, Aiken I can think of, that was a thing. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard as an exhibitor, as a trainer, and as a horse.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%. Yeah, I think it's just it's also like the way. Just like David, I'm originally from Germany. So like when I came to the United States, these massively set up horse shows with ends on ends on ends of rings, and basically it's just like everybody can come. It's a free for all. Like there's no qualifications or anything. You're just opening up the door for just being overrun, and I think that is exactly what is happening. Because like when we are in the winter at WEC and there is, I don't know, 12 rings running at the same time, there is no scheduling that can prevent any trainer conflicts or rider conflicts when they have to go from one ring to the other. And especially on a massive property like that, where it takes you, like when I'm in Barn O and I have to go to the stadium, that's like with the horse, that is a 20-minute walk. So if you then have like turn around and you have to go somewhere else. So I just think that people, horses, riders would benefit from more smaller horse show grounds and then start rotating instead of like just camping out for 3 months at the same place with, I don't know, 5,000 horses on the ground.
Forgive me if I'm stepping out of bounds, but I'm really glad we're having this call. Judging at WEC, which I loved, but I've got 90 in the 2'6" California split, and that, folks, is not easy to do.
No.
It's you do your best. I have to say I'm not bad at it, but it's tough. It's tough. But I
100%. Yeah.
And the thing is, again, dipping into the dressage world, because my pre-green, stomped like a garbage can, but jumped great. You get feedback,
Yeah.
why. And I feel that a lot of trainers will find that not so cool because that's not what they said. And so therefore it becomes, a prickly issue.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a wrong thing. I think it's a great thing. Why did
For
my
me,
horse not win? Well, he's in Appaloosa. No, dear heart, that's not it.
yeah, but that is the problem. When we did a hunter schooling show once in Ocala, and
Mhm.
we invited like really good judges for that. And we said, because it's a schooling show, like you can walk up to the judges booth and then talk to them after your round and get the feedback, which for a schooling show I thought was an amazing concept. But you
Yes, they're
won't
fun.
believe the resistance that people had, because
Correct.
some of the trainers didn't want their students to hear
Correct.
somebody else's opinion.
Correct. And,
Yeah.
I think that's sad. I hope we get past that. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's a little
But
bit
so far,
like with UDJC, it's going to be a little bit of just customer re-educating, just tell them like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. Just come,
Right.
learn, and then actually get the right tools to move into the sport in the right direction.
yeah, to me, if I can say something about the whole feedback portion when we're talking about that now, everybody that comes to the UDJC show really, really loves the feedback. That's one of the biggest things we have. And I didn't really plan on that. It was kind of a side thing. I thought, oh, you know what? Why not just give everybody some feedback? Okay, let's do it. So it was not like really planned, or it was nothing that we really insisted from the beginning. Turned out that's one of the biggest things we have, because people love it. The riders love it. The parents love it. And also the trainers that came to the show so far, they liked it a lot too. And in my opinion, it's totally not legit for a trainer to say, oh, I don't want my kid or whatever or my rider to go to one of these shows because they're getting feedback. This is such a level of insecurity, in my opinion, and I might step on quite a few toes here, but if you as a trainer are not confident enough to get feedback from somebody who's really knowledgeable in the area, you might not like it, you might but then what are we talking about here? You know what I mean? It's like, and you can still take that feedback and talk afterwards to your kid. You can still say, hey, the judge said you need to be a little bit more forward. I don't think it exactly that way, because I think, if we get more forward and then, this or this or this might happen, you can still, put your knowledge into that feedback and maybe not criticize it. I cannot come up with a better word, but, discuss it and talk about it. But there's no reason to hide from that feedback. And in my opinion, that's just an insecurity thing. So that's not
100%.
Yes, 100%.
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
One of the things, can I just interject for a sec? One of the things that I've come across is the last show I judged, I had a trainer say to her student saying, see, I've told you so. So meaning that on the other side of the coin, it's a reiteration of what they've been trying to tell them this whole time, and hearing it from a different voice maybe is kind of beneficial for their client to hear, because they hear it over, it just becomes background noise, and hearing it from someone else has become somewhat of like the trainers that are more confident and not insecure in their training methods have been like, yeah, absolutely, this is what I've been saying, see, I told you. So the benefit of that on that aspect is nice too.
It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good in the long run.
Right.
For sure. You're going to get pushback for people that are going to say, you only listen to me, they're nuts. But again, we go back to the tail wagging the dog.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and feedback has been in dressage for a million years, so it's something that is a little bit new to the hunter jumper world. But in dressage, there's always been feedback. It's written down, but it's feedback. And And it always gives you something to talk about. It always gives you something afterwards with your kid to sit down and say, listen, the judge saw this and this and this, and I agree, you know, it was that way. Or here, you know, they might have been a little bit too strict or something like that. There's always, you know, of course, you know, when it comes to judging, and no matter how hard we try, anybody, it's never going to be 1,000,000% objective. There's always a little bit of wiggle room. There's always a little bit of different opinions. No matter, I mean, at the Olympic Games, they have 7 judges, and they're 4 or 5% apart. You know, the ranking within these judges is scrambled, and those are some of the best judges in the world. So of course, it would be totally ridiculous to say that there is, you know, 100% objectivity, but it still gives you something to think about. It's, as a trainer and as a kid, it still gives you something to talk about afterwards. So yeah, we obviously don't see a problem at all with the feedback, and yeah, if somebody has a problem with it, that's whatever.
You can see things completely different from one side of the ring to the other.
Oh yeah.
And so you're talking about, and you know, a top level dressage show where you've got to judge at A, at C, at E, at M, and wherever you have it, you know, and if you've got the balls to go in there and you want to hear the comments, they're all going to be different. And you know what? 90% of the time when you go in there, like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yep, I know. Crap. Yep, I know. It's like you're just kind of cementing what you knew, and we have to keep working on that. But because people's egos are so fragile and they don't know what to do with it, it's hard. So anyway, I'm sorry, but I just think this is a great idea, and I'm kind of excited, and so I'll shut up. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
So David, there's just a question coming in. If you can talk a little bit more about the schooling days and eventual clinics that are offered at the shows.
Yes, we can do that. So every show is, of course, a little bit different. So sometimes there are clinics at the shows. The clinics are either with me when I'm at the show, or with one of the judges. We typically, when we do offer clinics, we have a dressage and a jumping clinic. That's technically just, you know, a normally 45-minute lesson that is also talking a little bit about the UDJC system and why we do things. So it's like a 2-in-1. It's like of course, a lesson combined with a little bit of education about UDJC and the format. The warm-up day, and we try to do this at every single show, is always scheduled. We always try to have a scheduled warm-up. So at our very, very first show here in Texas, we just had an open warm-up, and everybody was pretty much in the ring at the same time. And we had people that tried to, you know, warm up for meter 35, meter 40 in the middle of a bunch of pony kids that just tried to survive in the big indoor arena. So that didn't really work. And then we said for the second show, and moving on from there, we have to schedule that a little bit. So what we're doing now is we're building the course for the first show day, which is typically a Friday or Saturday. Obviously, we built that course for the warm-up day. And then you warm up in the warm-up ring, just like you would do at the show. And then you can go into the ring at a specific height. There's 50-centimeter warm-up, 70-centimeter warm-up, 90-centimeter warm-up, and so on. You go in your specific height and you ride that course. If you need to ride sections of the course again, something didn't work out, you just, you know, do it again. And so you have about, let's say, you know, nobody's really looking at a clock, but you pretty much have like 3-4 minutes in the ring where you can ride specific sections of the course or the whole course, and then the next one is coming in. So it's pretty much like a class. It's a warm-up class. It's like a class, but it's not judged. But also the trainer is not going in there with you, you know, so we don't want to see the trainers in the ring messing with the jumps and all that. No, warm up in the warm-up ring, and then use it as a training for your actual show day. So it's always scheduled, and it's always organized. It's just because when those warm-up rings get busy and everybody's all over the place, it's just too dangerous, and it doesn't make sense. Nobody really gets to jump, you know. Then you want to jump, and then somebody's coming in again and changing the jumps and all that. So we don't want that. We want it to be nice and organized. The dressage warm-up is typically open though, so you know, because dressage, it's never really busy, so it's just like, you know, 3, 4, 5 horses at the same time in the big arena just warming up, and you know, that's a little bit more freestyle ish, but the jumping is very organized on warm-up day.
Another question that came in. Are the courses the same each day? Classes are the same, courses are the same. Somebody else replied that the courses are new courses each day.
Yes, the courses are different each day. And the classes are also not the same. So we have a core, of course, of UDJC classes that are technically the same, that goes up to 85 centimeter, because every single class 85 centimeter and below in our jumpers is judged for style. So those are style jumping classes. So they're pretty much the same every day. But then starting at 95 centimeters, we have different modes. We have jump offs, we have for time, we have pure time where the penalties get converted into seconds. We have joker classes. I can talk a little bit more about that if you want to. We have my absolutely favorite mode is called combined. In a combined, we typically use that in those transitional levels, 95 centimeter, meter 5. You have to ride a round for style. And if you get a 7.5 or better, so meaning you rode it well, then you can stay in the ring for a jump off for time. So that's pretty much the introduction into time jumping. That's a cool format. So until 85 centimeter, the shows are, or each day technically is the same, but then it varies. So at our Katy shows, we typically do on Fridays, and the same schedule we have for Florida next week for Clarkona. We have on Fridays, we have some, we call it ATC, against the clock, which is pretty much time. What is it called, Ronny? Fehlerzeit. What is that called here?
Table 2-1.
Just the speed round.
Yeah, just like speed, faults and time pretty much. We do that on Friday, and then on Saturday we have some jump off heights, like the meter 15, meter 25, meter 35. That's jump off, and then Sundays we have. It kind of became a little bit of a tradition to have joker classes on Sundays, and joker classes are really fun. You have you get points for each jump. You get 1 point for clearing jump 1. You get 4 points for clearing jump 4, and so on. And then jump number 10 is either a regular jump number 10 that gives you 10 points, or you ride the so-called joker. The joker is typically a vertical that is a little bit higher and narrow and empty and a little, not nasty, but a little trickier to ride and a little higher. And that gives you 20 points. But if you knock it, you get 20 points deducted from your score. So it's a little bit of risk to go over the joker. So that kind of became a little bit of like our Sunday tradition to have a lot of joker classes. So yeah, long story short, the bottom of it is always the same, and then it changes at the top.
Super. Let's go through a couple more questions. I think this is an interesting one. Do you have a template to the hunter judging for the shows?
Well, if you go to the rule book, you can read a lot about the judging at the show. So you can find the rule book on the website. You go to the website, and then you go to downloads or whatever. You can find the rule book. There's a lot of stuff in there about judging and the hunters. So generally speaking, we want the hunters to be different than the hunters that we have right now. So we don't like how, what happened to the hunters in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, we're talking about a sport that comes from fox hunting, and people were in the field, really, really good riders were in the field, going nuts, jumping over 5-foot fences and ditches. And that's where the sport came from. And then it developed over generations into something that pretty much has nothing to do with this anymore. And we don't want to see any sedated horses. We don't want to see this perfect. The horse is not allowed to move the tail or move the ear, and nothing is really forward anymore. We don't want to see that. We want the hunters to kind of go back to the roots, and we want the horses to be forward. We want the horses to be active. We want the rider to ride and not just sit there. And we just want to get a totally different style of hunters. It needs to go. it needs to go back to, I mean, you know, everything is kind of want to be perfect. And then everybody uses every tool they can find to make those horses look perfect and quiet. And we don't want that. Why is that horse not supposed to move something? You know, why? I mean, if you take those hunters from the A show and you go into a hunting field with them, you're going to die on jump one. You know, that's not going to work. And we don't want that. So, and we want to see good riding. Everything in UDJC comes back to good riding, a thorough education, multiple disciplines, and good riding. And we want to see that in the hunters, you know, and that's also the reason why we don't start the hunters below 2'6", and we get a lot of pushback for that. Why don't you have low-level hunters? Well, the reason why we don't have low-level hunters is because we believe that for a beginner rider or a kid, the best way to learn how to ride is through dressage and style jumping classes. Everything is the same. You know, everything at the end of the day is the same. It doesn't matter if it's dressage, if it's jumping, if it's hunters, even if it's raining. You got to be able to ride the horse well, and that's the goal. And by being in one discipline, and we see that a lot of these kids and those low-level hunters, there's not a lot of, you know, there's just a lot of education and horsemanship lacking in the hunter discipline, unfortunately. So long story short, we want everybody to, I want to call it, learn how to ride in dressage classes and in style jumping classes. And when you reach 75, 85 centimeters and you ride them well, not well for time, but you ride them well with a good seat and good rhythm and good balance and actually knowing what you're doing, then you're good enough. If you say, you know what, I don't want to ride fast, I don't want to jump higher than that, but then you have the tools to go into our 2'6", 2'9" hunter classes and do well in them. And also our hunter classes are a lot more complicated to ride. The regular over fence classes have 10 to 12 jumps. The handy rounds have 12 jumps, at least between 12 and 14 jumps. I know that's a lot. But there are combinations, there are rollbacks, there are stuff from the trot. I mean, it's just hard to ride. So if you're a beginner rider, you cannot ride these 2'6", 2'9" hunter classes. So we want to build a foundation, a multi-discipline foundation, and then step into the hunters, because the hunters are traditionally no beginner stuff. And then people say, oh, but what am I going to do with my low-level hunters? Well, perfect. Bring them into the style jumping classes. The style jumping classes are, you know, for a beginner level kid, very similar. You know, they're just getting judged on their ride instead of getting judged on the horse. But, you know, they start at 40 centimeter cross rails from the trot, and then they evolve into regular 85 centimeter classes that are ridden, you know, over 8-9 jumps. Those style jumping classes are absolutely awesome for also the little hunter kids. You know, they're great. They get education, they get a feedback from the judge, the courses are easy to ride. It's just educational. So
can I say something on that topic, David?
Yes,
from a
please.
trainer perspective. The problem that I always run to, and that's why talking to David about the idea how UDJC is set up, is for me as a trainer a brilliant setup in a way of creating better riders overall. Because when I have kids coming to my program that have been taught from the ground up in hunter cross rails, hunter, I don't know, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. I mean, there have been divisions now that are so little where I don't know. It's like, is it even worth going to the show if you're just trotting over jumps? But anytime I get a kid that traditionally has started in the hunters, and then they say, like, you know what, I really feel like Blades of Glory, I want to go fast. For me to change them from what they learned in the hunters and prep them to be a competitive, safe rider in the jumpers, I almost have to break it all down again and start over. From a rider's balance, from a pace, from a horse's balance, from a track, from a distance, where all the kids that I'm teaching in the jumpers, if I would set up a hunter course and I would practice with my kid 2 or 3 rounds and would say, like, okay, we're going to get ready for a hunter course, they have all the tools to be competitive in the hunter course. And there's a big example that I'm always using, why I think, and that's why I agree so much on the message that UDJC is sending on how to develop the horses and how to develop the riders. Saturday Night Grand Prix, I can go through that starter list, and out of 30 riders, I can pick 10 and tell them, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., you're going to ride the 3'6" Hunter Derby. They might not be the winners, but they're definitely not going to embarrass themselves. They're going to be doing just fine. They're going to navigate that horse through that hunter course just fine. The problem is, if I go into the same starting list in the Hunter Derby, and I go to all these professional hunter riders and say, like, okay, tomorrow morning, you're going to ride the meter 50 Grand Prix under the lights. This is not going to work. And that's why, like, I agree with David and UDJC's message that you have to start it the other way around in order to get the foundation in and get the kids good riding first, safe riding first, knowing what they're doing. And if they then say, like, you know what, I'm not a speed demon. I would like to do more with my riding, but I don't want to run around, and I don't want to do like meter 10 speed rounds or jump off rounds. I like the pretty dipping around and just having fun with my horse. And you then go as a very well-rounded, educated rider into the hunters. You have all the tools.
100%.
For me as a trainer, the turnaround, when somebody, when some of my kids or amateurs have traditionally only been started in the hunter world, and then I have to switch them around to the jumpers, I might as well almost start off fresh, because it's like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Like, you don't want to go faster and then start leaning up the neck, because if there's a chip, you're going to go down, you know, body balance, horse's pace, all that is different, where it's going to be easier for my kids to say, like, okay, so now we're going into the hunter round, just stay nice and easy, do what you do, just a little bit more floaty and not so competitive, and they're going to be just fine.
And you're absolutely right. And on top of that, what's really dangerous is that 99% of kids in this country start in hunters and then they stay in there forever, you know. So it's not like you know, oh, you know, we do all three disciplines, we do some dressage, we do some jumping, we do some hunters, and then after 3 years they decide, you know, oh, I kind of like hunters, and then that's a different story. Like every single, I mean, we're in Houston here, we're in Texas. If you bring your 7-year-old kid to a riding school here, that kid is going to end up in a hunter riding school, 100%. There's no dressage riding programs, riding school programs, not really. I mean, style jumping kind of, you know, or equitation. Equitation is very similar. The real equitation, where really only the rider is judged, that is very similar, of course, to our style jumping classes on paper, unfortunately, only because, as we all know, you cannot win at an A show in an equitation class if you don't have $100,000 horse. So that kind of makes it kind of unrealistic again. But everybody starts in these hunter programs, and instead of a thorough education, starting at their very first riding lesson, they get a stamp hunter, and then this is kind of all they do without getting this thorough education. And that's something we really want to kind of, you know, not really fight against, but at least create an awareness that there's more stuff. If I go to an A show or to any USEF or schooling show or whatever, and I ask every single kid under 12 years old or anybody, hey, how many dressage tests did you ride in your life? The answer is going to be 0 from every single one of them, unfortunately, you know. And it's such a big, it's so important. Nobody has to be a Grand Prix dressage rider if you don't want to, but you have to be able to ride a second level dressage test. If you want to be a high level jumper, you better be able to ride a Prix St. George. Otherwise you cannot ride a meter 50 jumping. It's not possible. You can take every single rider out of the meter 50, that same meter 50 Ronny was talking about, and you put them on a dressage horse, and they can immediately ride a Prix St. George and an I1 at least, you know, because they know how to ride the horse. So but I want to move through here a little bit because we have some more questions. So the trainer certification, so that is of course something that is very, very important for us, because this is nothing that we can do today or tomorrow. You know, we cannot say, oh, by the way, whoever is not a trainer, an official, let's say a UDJC trainer cannot come to the UDJC shows, because then nobody's going to come to the shows. So that requires a little bit of time and a little bit of patience to be able to build something like that. So right now, of course, we don't have a trainer certification in place, but what we have, and we're going to be done with this in hopefully 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a system that is pretty much the beginner level of that. It's called UDJC Riding Schools. So we wrote a curriculum for riding schools. So if a trainer comes to our shows and they say, oh, you know what, I really like that system, I like style jumping classes, I want to see my kids doing dressage, and I really agree to all these things, then you can become a UDJC approved riding school. That would mean you would have to educate your kids at home in your lesson barn the way we all agree on is the right way to do it. And that gives you the opportunity to do UDJC barn shows, in-house shows that start at really, really tiny levels. So we want kids early on the horse. In our riding school here in Texas, we start kids at 2 years of age. So we have 2 and 3 year olds in lead line programs. That's of course not very riding focused. The focus is on them interacting with the horse, of course. And then the older they get, the better they get, the more, of course, the focus is on riding. But what I want to say is we start them very, very early. And this is what a lot of riding schools don't want to do, but we think it's important because you can start early enough. So that would be level 1. And then we have level 2 on the lunch line, level 3, where they start to ride individually, kind of, free by themselves, walk, trot, canter. And then level 4 is preparing them for competitions in dressage and jumping. So it's a 4-level curriculum that we offer to UDJC approved riding schools. They can run barn shows at their barn where all the kids can participate in barn shows and earn badges. That is something that we stole from Germany. We have a badge system in Germany that you have to pass different badges in dressage, jumping, and theory before you're even allowed to go to a show. So we have 3 badges in our riding school system. So the kids, kind of get very, very slowly prepared to jump into the regular show scene at little barn shows. And out of these barn shows, of course, out of these UDJC approved riding schools, of course, we want to develop a lot more things. We want to say, okay, now on top of that, you can become a UDJC approved trainer. So we'll provide training, we'll provide knowledge, we'll provide clinics, all these things. And after a specific amount of education, you can become an official UDJC instructor or trainer, probably even in 2 or 3 different levels, trainer A, B, C, something like that. And then on top of that, and this is something that is a big vision, and we don't know if that's going to happen or not, but it's a vision of mine, and typically I make it happen. We want to have academies. We want to have, in major areas in the country, we want to have academies where we have, let's say, a show facility that is combined with a campus where, kids, or not kids, but 18, 19, 20-year-old riders after high school, if they say, hey, I really want to make this my job, they can come to a UDJC academy for 2 or 3 years and get a very, very, very thorough education on how to be a horse trainer, business perspectives, riding, teaching, sales horses. I mean, whatever it is that you need in the industry. And those trainers can become, whatever you want to call them, master trainers. That is a system that is working in Germany very, very well. It's called the Berider. Everybody has probably heard about it. It's a 3-year education. You have to be a very, very good rider to be accepted at one of the barns that have a master trainer, and they take you under your wing, and you go there for 3 years, and you're like the bottom of the bottom. You're like, and these people are good riders already when they come into these programs, but they're being used for you work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, and 1 or 2 days of the week you go to a school, to something like a community college, where they teach you all the business aspects and the theory of all that. So that is a big vision. We want to have that too. So trainer education and also trainer certification is definitely something that is going to come, and it's going to come in steps, because we cannot just show up and say no here nobody's a trainer here. So that requires a little bit of time. I hope that answers.
So basically, the idea that I got from David and UDJC with those trainer certificated barns and that kind of stuff is also creating awareness for new people that are coming into the sport. Because right now in America, the like I can pull a homeless guy off the street, I can give him a banner, buy him a farm, and can say you're a trainer now, and he can open shop and he can go, and off they go, right? So I think it also, for the long run, it depends on, again, a little bit like customer education again, if I take that term out of the marketing world, where if then new people are looking around and say like, okay, I'm looking for a trainer, that it helps them to see like, oh, look, this one is certified by UDJC. So they already have a little bit of a heads up to say like, well, at least we know this one is working with a system and it's not just a random people or a rich young professional where mommy and daddy bought a farm because they were once in the McClay finals and now they're a professional and they just open shop and they're going to be a trainer for the rest of their lives. That way, I think it just opens up the door for people to be able to shop around for a qualified trainer with good education, because then you kind of have a little bit more just like, okay, why does this one don't have certification? This one has certification, and it kind of helps you a little bit more to make an informed decision as a newcomer in, because at the end of the day, you're handing over your kid to an absolute stranger, and only in the horse world you do that without any credible accreditation. Like if somebody has a nice shining banner and a good looking farm, apparently that's good enough to hand your kid over there and put him on a 1,000-pound farm animal and jump them over wooden sticks in one of the most dangerous sports in the world, where I think in the future, once UDJC gets to the point where they do have those training barns and training certifications, it's gonna make it a little bit safer also for parents to pick and choose the trainers that they want their kids to be trained by.
And Ronnie, 100% to your point, I think that creating a syllabus that starts from you do this before you do this before you do this, which is the way I was trained in a very long time ago, by a cavalry colonel, it makes sense. You don't get to do this before you can drop your stirrups. You don't get to jump before you do this. So it's a safety thing, and it makes
100%. 100%. And I think also, I think it's always going to be hard to make something mandatory. I'm not a big fan of regulations, but I have to say, living in America now and running around those rated shows that we are going now, unfortunately, common sense is not that common sense anymore. And sometimes rules have to be in place just to monitor the bad bottom percentage of people that are running around and are not knowledgeable. So, and for me, we are still the guardians of our horses first. That is number one. And unfortunately, without really knowing how many people are knowledgeable enough to be good horsemen and have the best interest of the horses and the riders in mind, we need to have some rules in place where we say like, no, you can't jump 20 classes a day. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. Because at the end of the day, the number one is still the well-being of our horses, where I think there I tend to almost like over regulate, because like I said, I just want to protect the horses and the riders from the bad percentage that is in the bottom. Where then when with UDJC you have the trainer accreditation system, people can choose to do it and be part of it, or they choose, I don't need this. But then the customer education comes to the part where then people need to see like, if they don't do it, why don't they do it? Don't they believe in themselves? Are they not good enough to do it? And that should then point it into the direction that the people that are good horsemen and good trainers and do it the right way will get more business than the people that are choosing shortcuts, which then would push the bad apples into rethinking their system.
And you're educating the parents.
100%.
Yes.
Those are the ones that really need to be educated.
Yep.
Where
For sure.
in America, I found out that they rather have them uneducated. They don't want them around. They don't want them knowledgeable. So that, you know, because then it's easier to look on the other side of the fence and see like, well, why is this trainer saying this and my trainer is saying this? You know, like I do a lot of clinics, and I noticed that I do not get invited into big A show barns, like really big A show barns. I've been to clinics all over the country, and most of the times it's the perfect grassroots setup where the kids do their own horses, the parents are involved, the trainer even takes part in the clinic, you know, like all this, which actually is the real core of our horse industry that needs to be furthered into the show industry. Unfortunately, they don't have the financial means to do those big $2,000 a week show bill type of shows, you know, where again with UDJC's plan of like structuring also, well, if you want to run a UDJC show, you can't charge $600 for a stall. I'm sorry. That's, you know, like I like that there is some sort of a price bracket where they say like, no, like if you want to put on a show, make it inclusive for every financial bracket. And that is, I think, where UDJC will step in and basically pick up the leftovers that other federations just neglect because they're not in the top 1% bracket. You know, I always say McDonald's didn't become the biggest burger joint because they're selling $45 burgers. You know, there's more people that want to do it the right way that are just being left on the sidelines because the money is not that big and that shiny, where I just hope that UDJC will create a platform where education and horse welfare is always number one. And then number three is affordability. So that somebody that is not part of a big trainer program can come in, enjoy it, but also learn from it. You know, there's a lot of people that have horses that just love it for the sake of doing it, just spending time with their horses. And if they can come to a horse show and they don't have a trainer at home, they ride a style class and they get a feedback from a judge. That's fantastic. Then they can go home and train on it and learn from it. And that's where I say, like, the horse welfare, number one, the educational part of bringing up very well-rounded, educated horse owners, riders, and trainers, and then the affordability. I think that is the perfect trifecta that we have been missing here for a long time.
1,000%. As a horse show judge, how many times have I wanted to say to that person, if you had only, you were awesome. And sometimes if I'm in the right venue, which is a smaller show where it won't be frowned upon, you know, at the proper time, I take that kid aside and say, oh my gosh, you were fantastic. I wanted to let you know that, you know, but here's what happened.
So our head hunter judge, Kathy Davidson, she's wonderful. I take her to almost all our UDJC shows as a hunter judge. She's pretty much almost only doing UDJC now, but she had one other regular little schooling show scheduled last week, and she did the same thing she did at the UDJC show. She didn't care. She judged some little hunter classes with little hunter kids, and after every single one of them, she just yelled feedback at them. That was kind of fun, and she didn't care. But whatever. So I wanna move through this a little bit here. So we have a couple questions concerning shows. Please send out, use the form. We have a form on the website if you're interested in running shows that you can fill out. I want to just say this. Deborah, can you mute yourself, please? You're super loud. Somebody's super loud.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. So what we require for a show facility, I mean, so here's the thing, you know, we don't want to run shows only in little tiny barns, and we also don't only want to run shows in big equestrian centers. What we want to have in 2 or 3 years, I want to have 500 shows or 1,000 shows all over the country. So what we want to create an environment where we have big shows at big equestrian centers that go to 1.50 meters, and we also want to have our little barn shows at the riding schools, or, you know, bigger barns or small equestrian centers. The idea is that in a couple of years we have always a UDJC show in the area, accessible for everybody, you know, with an hour of a drive. That's the idea. So that cannot be done only with equestrian centers, of course. And then also, if you only do little barns, you cannot run big classes and stuff. But we want something of everything. So if you have a facility that is safe, and you have class appropriate footing, then we can try to make something happen. We can try to put a show together. What is always very, very, very important, and it becomes more and more important, is if you want to run a show, you need to have a good network of people that support the show. Because we as UDJC, we do a lot of good marketing, I think, and we have a great Mackenzie is our marketing girl. She's absolutely fabulous. And we do some cool things, some funny things, and we get a lot of reach and attention, but we cannot drag the people to the shows. That is something that the show organizer pretty much has to do. So, and, you know, people are fast on Facebook liking things and saying, oh, cool, I wish this comes to my area. And then it is in the area. And then they're like, oh, but my grandmother's at the hospital. So it needs somebody that is really involved in the community, that's able to make these shows happen. That being said, it can be at a smaller facility, it can be at a bigger facility, whatever. Send us an email and we can figure something out. And footing, I just want to say one sentence about footing. We want class appropriate footing. If we do a show that goes up to 95 centimeter with a bunch of little style classes and little kids, we don't need a GGT footing. We don't need the best footing in the world. If we run 1.50 meters, we need to have some good footing. So that's another thing that we need to get away from, that everybody thinks if my horse is not going on the best GGT footing, I cannot go to that show and ride my 2'6" hunter class, because that is ridiculous. If you ask Ronny in what kind of literal shit we used to ride 30 years ago, 20 years ago in Germany.
Hey, don't make me that old.
meter 40s in 20 by 40 meter indoor dressage arenas with dark brown literal horse poop footing, then you can ride your 2'6" class in a regular sand arena. Don't worry about it. So that is something we have to get away from. We have to go back to good riding. We have to go back to good horsemanship, and not who has the fanciest pictures on Instagram. And the footing is a big part of that, a very big part. So, but that being said, so yeah, please, yeah, sorry, you want to say something, Ronny?
Yeah, on your horse show topic, when we mentioned that we would like to keep the UDJC shows affordable for everyone, one of the biggest costs that all the horse shows that I always see is labor overhead. There is like 10 guys that are sitting around just to pick rails up and everything. So there's a link on the UDJC website where you also can get information and sign up to be a volunteer. And I think it's very honorable that, you like anyone can be a part of making this accessible for everyone and everything. So on the website, just go to the volunteer, and when you see there's a show in your area, make sure you tell all your friends and family to, if you have nothing to do on the weekend, just be part of it. Be part of a new way of getting the fun back for everyone involved, even the ones without the big checkbook.
We'll find a job for you. Don't worry. We'll always find the job. No, that's another thing. And I want to say something, and this very, very quick, about volunteers. Volunteers are super valuable, and we really need them. And a very big misconception is that, and the big show organizers like to do that. They say, oh, I don't want to work with volunteers because they're not knowledgeable enough and they're not reliable and blah, blah, blah. They always say that and that, in my opinion, is a bunch of crap. We have very big horse shows in Europe that are completely ran by volunteers. The only person that gets paid, or the only people that get paid, are the judges, and they get paid a tiny little bit. You know, a judge is typically not a business model in Europe. You know, they get $100 a day or something like that, just for, you know, a little thank you for being there. So technically they're kind of, at least at the lower levels, they're kind of volunteers too. So we have shows that go up to a meter 55 with $30,000 Grand Prix, big horse shows with 1,000 horses that are completely ran by the community. They're completely ran by volunteers. So of course you need to educate some of the volunteers, and you know need to be structured, and you need to give them the right things to do and all of that. But it can completely be done by volunteers. You don't need to pay 5 guys $400 a day to pick the poles up in the arena, like Ronnie said, you know. And what the horse shows do here, they're like, oh, my prices for this went up and my prices for this went up, and here we go, you know, we're just gonna charge everybody $200 more for a horse show. It's easy. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that, you know. So we try to keep the cost on there a lot. And the footing, unfortunately, is one big factor. I mean, labor of course is, but like, best example, and then I want to move on, but this is just very interesting. At the Great Southwest Equestrian Center here in Katy, which is a very good show facility, the footings are very good. They had a big ring outside. It's called the Mega Ring. It's a huge arena. It's like 350 feet long or so, and it had a 4-foot drop. And that 4-foot drop on 350 feet is nothing. You couldn't even see it with your eye. You couldn't feel it when you were riding. You couldn't see it. It was absolutely nothing. And now, especially the hunter fraction of, you know, people that ride 2'6" hunter classes complain so much about that footing, because it's not called a drop. What is it called, Ronnie? Like the
slope.
Yeah, a 4-foot slope on 350 feet long. Now they complained so much that the equestrian center had to spend more than 300 grand to adjust the base to make it a 2-foot slope. So that arena literally is still the same. Technically, they could have done the Olympic Games in that arena. I'm not kidding. And now they, you know, $300,000 later, it's a 2-foot slope, same arena, but guess what's going up next year in 2026? Well, the facility prices. So that is just, you know, one thing we desperately have to get away from. And we don't had you know, we had meter 40s in that arena. Nobody complained about it, the meter 40 riders, but then supposedly at the A shows, a bunch of people complained about that slope.
Well, now it'll be a hurricane magnet.
Yeah. Okay.
So a 4-foot drop on 350 feet length is roughly 0.65 degrees, less than 1 degree change of altitude here.
I mean, you have to have that, otherwise the water is not going to run off.
So there's another great question here. This about the style jumpers, if they are judged similar to equitation over fences.
Yes. So I'm not a specialist on equitation over fences, or, you know, that stuff. But as far as I understand, yes, because it's as far as I understand, equitation is judged on the rider. But then I find videos on YouTube when I looked into that topic of equitation, I found a bunch of videos where judges were talking about, oh yeah, it's kind of 50% on the horse and 50% on the rider, and yeah, the horse does. I know on paper, I know on paper it's not. But that's kind of how it's, you know, how they. I mean, that's at least what they say in their interviews. So I cannot talk too much about equitation, but I can tell you how the style jumpers are being judged. We want to see good riding in jumper style, if you want to call it that. If you watch Marcus Ehning ride, if you watch McLean Ward ride, if you watch these guys ride, if you watch Ronnie ride, they would get very
me ride.
If he doesn't fall off for once. But if, you know, these guys, they would get very good style scores, because they sit on the horse beautifully. They have great balance. Of course, the horses are supple and through and uphill and in front of the leg and bendy and blah, 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 all this stuff you need. And also in those little classes, what we want to see in 40, 50, 60 centimeter classes is riders that have a good seat, good aids, the horse is in front of them. They pick a good track. It doesn't have to be the tightest track. It doesn't have to be the biggest track, just like a good track for the speed and for the size of the horse and for the level of riding, whatever it is. And that is simply judged on the rider. And I know people say, oh yeah, but it's almost impossible to kind of separate the horse and the rider.
That's not true.
That is not true. Yeah, in my opinion,
Thank you,
it's
Bob.
not. In my opinion, it's
35
not
years of
true.
judging.
It's not.
Yes, in my opinion,
It's-
it's not true either.
Yeah.
So it is possible to separate it, of course, if you know what you're doing. And of course, there are some horses that make you look a little better, and there are some horses that make you look a little not so good. But a good judge can figure that out. So the main difference, though, and this is, I think, the reality. The main difference in our style jumping classes is, if you have a $200 auction pony and you ride a 75 centimeter style class beautifully, because you're good, because you're a good little rider, then you win the class. So nobody cares about the price tag of your horse. Nobody cares if your horse is a quarter pony or a big warm blood. It does not matter. So you can come to UDJC and win 85 centimeter style class with a $0 auction pony if you're a good rider. And as far as I know, that is not possible in equitation. I don't know why. Maybe Ronny knows more about it, but I can just talk for UDJC. I can just talk for UDJC and tell you how it is, since I'm not.
If I can interject just a second on that, only because in the rule books for USAF, it says that a workman-like position is to be rewarded more than just the pose. So when I judge, I look for someone who has agreed to communicate with their horse and not just posing and being pretty. So meaning that if there's a problem and that rider solves it, that rider goes higher on my card than a rider that is just sitting on a horse that's just like carrying them around, because that's not riding, as we know.
Yeah.
And so that's what I look for in my.
But also on the other side, if and this is where it gets a little complicated. If you see a horse where it almost looks like, oh, the kid is not really doing a whole lot, that might mean that the kid is riding so well that it doesn't have to do a lot, or that the kid rode the horse at home so well and trained the horse so well that he or she doesn't have to do a lot. So of course, that's a little, that goes both ways technically, but as a good judge, I mean, and that, Deborah, you can see it and you can figure that out. And of course, we don't mind, the style jumping classes are supposed to be ridden like a jumper. And if you come out of the turn and you need to bring your horse back a little bit, or you need to keep on riding a little bit, and we want to see that. It's not like, oh, but here, he made the stride bigger, or he made the stride small. No, just ride the horse well. That's your job.
Once again, to your point, or to my point, or whatever, if you have a syllabus and you have a basis and you know what needs to come first and second and third, and Bob Wood's on this conversation, and so I know he agrees wholeheartedly, then you know what you're looking for. And those of us that have spent decades in the IHSA and IEA, what, it's really not that hard.
Yeah.
David, question about the style class while we're on that topic.
Yeah.
Do you have related lines in the style classes?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but they're typically long. They're typically 6-7 strides or so.
Good.
Okay, that's great, because now that comes to my second part. If it is a 7-stride distance,
perfectly fine. You can ride it with 8 if it makes sense. That's, I guess,
perfect.
That's your question.
That was exactly the point that I wanted to go to, because this is the type of style judging that I grew up with, where the judge then, said like, if he would have tried to do it in the 7, that would have been a disaster. It was such a smart move to set the horse up for a perfect 8, make this ride perfect and safe and good for the horse. That makes more sense than just trying to run down for the numbers. Okay, that's great. That's a good point.
You can ride the steady 6 or the 7.
I thought a kid.
I know what you're doing there. I know what you did there.
No, yeah,
Last
it's
year,
you know, if you have, I mean, obviously, you know, if you come into a style class with a horse with a very short canter or a pony or whatever, you can ride a 6 and a 7. You can even ride a 6 and an 8 sometimes if it makes sense. You know, if you ride it well, you ride it well. So it's about setting it up for success, of course, and not setting it up because this is what you're supposed to do. You know, that line is built for the norm. If your horse is the norm and you're if you're the norm, then yeah, it's going to be 6. But if you're out of the norm, then it's not going to be 6, and then it's smart to ride 7 or 5. Well, typically not 5, but 7 or so.
I was looking, if I have to count, that means it didn't look good.
No. Nobody needs to count.
Yeah.
What size shows? Well, that depends on you. Rough estimate about how many riders you need to participate in a small barn show. So that totally depends on the barn, of course. You know, if you have a lesson program and you have 25, 30 kids, and you want to run a small show with 25, 30, 35 kids, that's perfectly fine. We don't have a requirement for that. The only thing that is that we don't want to see is that you have a show where not a lot of people compete, because then it's not really interesting, or it still is interesting, but it's like people might think, oh, I come to the show, but there's like only 11 other people, and it gives a little bit of a so we try to avoid that. But if you have a small facility and if you set up that way that you cannot even have more than that, then this is perfectly, we don't have a requirement for it. But it's just something that we tell everybody, that you kind of have to try to get your own crowd together, and we support and we help instead of relying on UDJC to fill the show.
I think that up in my area, Ronnie, you were actually up in my area not too long ago doing a clinic at Rock Tavern, and
Yes.
up in that area with Gardner Town. I think that would be a perfect area to do a show like that, for sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, with something new like UDJC, it all has to be word of mouth. So if that is something that you guys feel like you can stand behind,
Dolores
and that is something you want to see happening more, I'm pretty sure UDJC and David would just appreciate just the word of mouth and say like, hey guys, there is something, it sounds really cool, you should look into it. I think your barn could host something like that, and then just spread the word that way. Because I think for me, always the best marketing is like word of mouth, and like just your own feedback on stuff. If I come to you and tell you like, look, I went to this restaurant, the steak there, unbelievable, the starters great, the money amazing, you would trust that from me more than if you would see an ad of that restaurant on Facebook. You know what I mean? So I think the same way, in order to get like UDJC into that level and into the hands of the people that need it so much, is just really by just picking up the phone and just saying like, guys, like I just watched something, I think it's a great course, I think your people and your area would benefit from it, and then just get into that movement.
It's always the biggest struggle. Well, I cannot say struggle, I'm always very fast and everything has to be faster. I mean, we're not even a year old, we're like 8 months old or so, and we have shows in 11 different states, and we had a lot of successful shows already, and we have a lot of shows up lined up for next year. So it's all good. But what we see a lot is kind of people are hesitating to go and try something new, and this is this is the biggest struggle we have, kind of complaining on a high level, but the biggest struggle we have is getting people to come to the show. When they come to the show, and Corinda is on the call, she can confirm that, and a couple other people, Deborah has been to 3 shows now. Everybody, literally everybody who comes to the UDJC show afterwards says, oh my God, this was such a cool show, I loved it. Like, we have a tiny bit of I don't even know, I'm probably not even a tiny bit, because I've never heard anything. So, there's a couple things like, oh, I wish this would be a little more like this, a little bit more like that. But nobody comes to the show and says afterwards, well, I wish I wouldn't have gone to that shit show, So everybody really likes the shows, and they bring more and more and more horses. At the first show in Texas, we had 60 horses. At the second show, we had 80. At the third show, we had 100. Now, and that's not even, it's still next week, we have already 110 or 120 horses signed up for next week's show. And typically the majority of people sign up on the last 2 days. So we're expecting probably 160, 180 horses at our next show in Katy next weekend. So because people say, oh, I'm going to come watch first, then I'm going to come bring one horse. And then, oh, this was kind of cool, I'm going to bring 5 horses, And so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I can just say this to everybody who wants to come and watch. Please don't come and watch. Please bring a horse or two and check it out, because you need to experience it, and you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose by coming to a show. It's not like we don't do a different sport. It's not dangerous. It's nothing that you haven't seen. It's just riding the horse. So if you plan on coming, please bring a horse and bring your friends. So because that's
some volunteers.
And some volunteers, bring some volunteers and some sponsors.
May I comment? May I comment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bob got
Yeah.
something.
I'm old school. I was trained in the early 50s by a U.S. cavalryman, and I never changed. As when George Morris wrote his book in 1977, 100-seat equitation, I just ignored it and continued all my life. And I think what you're saying here, you're always talking about children. You may be missing a big market.
Sorry.
What I found.
So let me say that real quick. Let me interrupt you. And I typically say that in the beginning. I talk about, we have a huge riding school here in Texas with a bunch of kids, and I'm always saying kids. I don't mean kids. I mean kids, and everybody who is with kids, I mean, lower level riders below 85, 95 centimeters, that kind of, I always call it kids, and that's a very bad habit of mine. I don't mean, amateurs, adult amateurs, everybody, same way, it doesn't have anything to do with kids. I'm just kind of miss saying that. Sorry.
Okay, well, I still want to point this out.
Yeah.
I'm old school. I had a cross-country course on my farm that I retired from. I didn't have a lot of children because I'm a demanding teacher, and they had to learn how, I agree with everything you're saying. They have to learn how to ride before they compete. Anyway, the biggest market for me was returning women. They were hunters when they were children. They went to college, or they got a job. They got some promotions. Now they have discretionary income, and they don't want to buy a boat or play golf. They want to go back to horses. And there's a lot of them, and they're not as fragile as the children. They have judgment. So if they have a trainer, they're not married to that trainer. They want information from other people, and they want to compete, but they don't want to compete with a bunch of kids. They're adults, and they want to ride, and they want to use competition not to win a ribbon, but to test themselves against other adults.
Yeah.
And they have money, and they have a trailer, and they have a job. This is a big market, and it's an easier market than the parents and the kids, believe me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we don't care if it's kids, if it's adults. For us, it's a level. We also don't separate between juniors and ponies and amateurs. And so that whole thing is very, very open, and everybody competes against everybody. I just have that bad habit of always calling them kids because we have so many kids here. But that's definitely not the case. So yeah, I like what you're saying. It's absolutely true. But let me tell you just one thing from my experience with the kids. I know everybody always says, well, it's so complicated with the parents, and it's so complicated with the kids, especially these days. Everything is going in a weird direction, and it's so hard to deal with the kids. In my experience, it is actually very, very easy to deal with them, and also with the parents, if you're strict from the very first day. So like I said, we have probably one of the biggest riding schools in the country, and we have hundreds of kids. And we start them very early, and we also start them very, very strict. It's very German in our riding school. There's not a lot of arguing. There's not a lot of, oh, can I ride this horse today or that horse tomorrow? All of that doesn't exist. And then after the riding school, we have a full training program with 15, 20 kids that have their own horses and go to shows. And every single kid in that full training program comes out of our riding school. We don't take anybody from the outside typically. So these kids sit on the horse the first time in their life at our riding school in our program, and it's very, very tough. And the higher they go, the tougher it gets. And my program, my full training kids, it's probably the hardest program you can find. I'm very, 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 very demanding, even for German standards. Even with the 10, 11, 12-year-olds, they can do everything themselves. They can go to the show themselves. I have 10, 11-year-olds that go to the show themselves. They hook up the trailer, the dad hooks up the trailer, and then the kid parades the horse, goes to the show, goes to the office, walks the course, warms up. They tell some other trainer in the warm-up, hey, can you put that vertical up for me? Stuff like that. They ride and they go back home. They don't need anybody at the show as a 10, 11-year-old. So, but that is, I think, because we bring them up very, very educated and strict, and I'm pretty sure if these kids that are really, really good kids, if they grow up in a different program or in a different way where it's like the classic hunter way or whatever, they would not go to the show by themselves. They couldn't do that. That's what I believe. So instead of always blaming the parents and blaming the kids, I think it depends on what are you doing with these kids, and how is the trainer influencing these kids. That makes a very big difference, I think. But I mean, in general, you're right, of course. But then when you dig a little bit into the detail, if you take them after they have been somewhere for 5 years, that's what Ronny was talking about earlier, then you have to undo a lot of things. And you don't only have to undo a lot of riding things, you also have to undo a lot of behavioral things. And that of course is complicated. We don't deal with that in our little environment here in our riding school, but that is also something that we want to project or whatever the word is, put on other project on other riding schools. That's why we came up with this UDJC riding school program, where we guide a little bit more towards, this is the real horsemanship and this is what these kids need to know in order to be independent kids. And also that is where the circle closes itself. My kids are not holding the ring. If I'm not there and they need to go in, they go in. They don't even care if I'm there or not. If somebody would ask them, hey, you don't want to wait for their trainer, they start laughing. They're like, what's my trainer supposed to do? I'm riding my damn course. But that's the kind of attitude that we have to develop again, independent kids, to not have to hold the ring for 80 minutes because they cannot ride the little 50 centimeter class without the trainer holding the hand. That's where we kind of want to go. Thorough education.
I completely agree with it.
Yeah.
I just think when you come up to the East, you're going to run into some very wealthy, entitled parents.
Yeah.
And they are very challenging.
Yeah. Hey, and if it's not for them, then stay where you're at. So the interesting thing about this, Bob, is none of this is money driven. Not the opposite is the case. I'm putting a lot of my personal money into that. We don't do this because we think, oh, this is a great business idea. Let's run some horse shows and stuff. That is
Wait, what do you mean? I'm not getting paid? Is that what you're saying?
You're getting paid, Ronny, but you're the only one. You're the only one. We're not doing that for money reasons. We do that for, first of all, the welfare of the horse, and we want people to become thoroughly educated riders, and we need to save this. I feel so strong about it. I think we need to save the sport. We need to save that industry. We're on the edge of getting kicked out of the Olympic Games with all 3 disciplines, while at USEF they're happily drugging the damn horses to ride their stupid 2'6" classes. That it is so far away from reality that it's pathetic to me. So I feel like we have to save that industry, and that's what we're trying to do. This is not money driven. This is not, hey, and if they don't want to come, I don't want to convince them. Come and try. If you don't like it, well, fine. Go write your A shows, and that's we're not holding a grudge. We're not mad at anybody who wants to write A shows. Do whatever you want to do, but we want to create a platform for the people that don't want to do that. So that's
totally
where
agree.
we're at.
David, there's a very interesting question here, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to read the question, and if I could have the floor to answer that one. Somebody was asking, I think you get a lot of comments and interactions from amateurs and juniors who are really interested but feel like they can't attend a show without their trainer. I hope lots of trainers are getting on board. Do you have any thoughts or comments on this? Yes, I certainly do. If you feel that is something that you would like to try out, and you have the feeling that your trainer is not very supportive of thinking outside of the box, we are right back to what we were talking about in the beginning, where maybe your trainer is not as good as you think they are. We drive with our kids to so many shows, so many different shows. There can be the biggest circuit right next to my doorstep in Ocala. If I think I want to go to another show and my kids want to go there, then we load up and we go. I have some kids that want to go to the outreach shows in Venice, and there can be a massive circuit at WEC or HITS running. If they want to go there, and if we feel that that is a good idea, then we are supportive of it, So I think it all just, again, it comes down to the key part of customer education, are you in the right environment? Is the trainer really as good as you think they are? Do they really have the well-being and the best education in mind for you and your horse? Or is it really just money driven because at the big facilities where you pay the big dollars, they make the biggest money? That would be my answer to it. Do you have anything to add on that one?
No. I mean,
see, you weren't even listening, eh?
No,
you got distracted.
No, I was listening to every single word. But it is true, if your trainer, I mean, I think, and this is something that Corinda is always saying, I think we just need to keep on doing what we're doing and educate the parents and educate the riders that there is something else, that there is something that is affordable and that's educational, and maybe the riders or maybe the riders and the parents need to put some pressure on the trainer step by step, and then more and more trainers are hearing from their customers, hey, I want to go to these shows, and that might be the key to getting these barns to come. I mean, there are hardcore A show barns who would never do anything else, and like I said earlier, that's fine too, but I think there are a lot of barns that can profit a lot from having UDJC around. There's actually a blog. We have a blog on the website now, and I put a few articles in there with one of them is why trainers need UDJC. It's it makes a lot of sense for trainers to go to UDJC shows instead of a lot of the other shows that they're doing. But everybody can read about this in the blog article.
100%. I 100% agree. If I'm spending time at some of those big shows and I see some of the little classes, I just feel bad for some of the parents where I'm just like, oh shit, I know what your show bill for this week is going to look like, and your kids didn't need to be here. Like, they should have gone to a UDJC show or to a local show, support the local show environment and get their miles there. And then once you're ready, then you're like, okay, I feel like we're ready for this. We're competitive. We know what we're doing. And I think a lot of times, like, again, uneducated parents and uneducated students then just get schlepped to all these big shows because that's where the trainers make the most money. And a lot of times I watch them and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I
but
don't
hold
know why
on.
you wasted
But hold on.
$1,200 now.
But why do they make the most money there? You know, you can make the same amount of money by going to cheaper shows. Actually, if you're smart about it, and that's also in the blog article, you can actually make more money because everybody has a horse budget. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, it doesn't matter if you're a kid parent or if you're an adult amateur. Everybody has a horse budget, and that horse budget is whatever, $3,000 a month. If you put $1,500 of your horse budget towards going to an expensive show, then there's only $1,500 pretty much left over for the barn to make in that month. If you go to a cheaper show and you have, you only spend $500 on a show, then there's technically $2,000 that can be made by the barn because the people spent the horse budget anyways. They don't say at the end of the month, oh cool, this month my, that is horse money. That money in people's head is spent anyways. So I think that the trainers can profit a lot by getting the cost for showing down in order to have more money that they can make in their training program, on maybe even on show side of things, so of course it's, and of course we want to keep everything affordable for the riders, and it's nice if shows are way more affordable, but the trainers can actually take advantage of that and get their business going a little better. So it's yeah, there, and I don't know why, like, mediocre barns have to travel from Texas to WEC and then spend 3 or 4 weeks at WEC with a
Because
bunch of, yeah, I know, because they want nice pictures from nice facilities. I know,
exactly.
but why not practice a little bit more at shows that make sense, that are around the corner, and then get a picture over 1.30 m at WEC instead of a picture at the 75-centimeter class, so learn how to ride and then go to WEC. That's kind of, where we're at.
Yep.
And UDJC can help the trainers a lot. That blog article is interesting, and I think it is. And we a lot of barns need to probably rethink things a little bit. Not that top 1% barn. We're not worried about them. We don't care about them. We don't even waste a thought on them, to be honest. But the other 99 or 95%, whatever you want to call it, I think things massively on all different fronts have to change dramatically. That's why I stopped at some point to try to convince judges, USEF, board members, whatever, all these organizations. For 5 years I tried to change things, and we probably all have, and obviously not even 1% is going to change ever. So I realized, at the end of last year, I'm like, okay, so nothing is going to change, so nobody's doing anything about it, so I might have to do it myself. So that's why we're sitting here, because things are not changing fast enough, if they even change.
And we applaud you. And
well,
thank you.
Don't
but
applaud me. Just come to the show.
No. But it's the idea of, once again, creating a horsemanship foundation, and that's where you're going. Yeah.
One thing that always bothers me, let me say that, everything is so money driven, and everything is like, whatever it is, why don't you at the same time just teach the kid how to ride? You know what I mean? You're doing all of this, you're doing all of it, but why don't you just teach them? Why don't you? That's something that I don't understand, but it's
convenience.
Yeah, but
it's
how?
Convenience. Shortcuts. It's shortcuts. If you get the same money without giving a crap, what's the difference? But at the end of the day, again, we're like, it's always a circle, right? At the end, again, it's like, what type of trainer do you have at home? Do you have one that still values all that kind of stuff, that works with the horse and works with you? Or are they just in it for, again, they want to be the trainer in the shiny picture in the grand arena, and put it on their Instagram? Is it that, or is it really horse related? At the end of the day, it's all full circle again. What type of people are running our industry now? And I'm not talking about just federation, but also trainers and you know, like judges, stewards, like what is the real intention behind it, right? And I think like you have been swimming upstream for a couple of years now. There was a post of mine arguing a little bit of some thematics from that other federation that just popped up as a memory on Facebook from 2015. So since 2015, like we're having those conversations, and it was actually eye-opening for me. And I think that's why I started distancing myself. Yes, I'm still running a business. I'm still going to those shows, but because as of right now, in order to feed my family and care for my wife and my animals and my home and my this, I have no alternative, right? So it's not that I'm still a huge supporter, but right now it still pays the bills for me. But the difference is the way I teach my kids has nothing to do on how those shows are running. You know, I have one little kid. We're trying to move her up, and she wants to be competitive. And I told her, I was like, look, you have two options. You can be competitive and you can be the queen of the 80 centimeters, or we go to the show, you ride properly, I tell you how to ride, and that is setting you up to have a good foundation to be safe moving up. So there was then my point when UDJC came along, and I read through the rule book and I had conversations with David where I was like, this is actually the direction that I tried to change the system for the last 10 years, also without any moving into a right direction. And then I also got to the point where David was, where he was like, well, shit, then I just do it myself, right? And for me, like, I'm happy that David is such a go-getter and just says, like, you know what, screw it, I do it myself. I have to say, I don't think I would have had the cojones to put something on and say, like, okay, I do it myself. But I do have the cojones to say, like, this product I like, and this product I really stay behind it. And I would love for UDJC to get to the vision that is there, to have 500 shows, 1,000 shows around the country, where then I, as a horseman, can say, like, okay, now I can go, now I can still run my business going to horse shows, but I can go to horse shows that are actually in line with my horsemanship and my mentality of training and my care for the horses when it comes to horse safety and horse welfare, and the proper education of not just the riders, but the parents, the trainers, the stewards, the judges, all the volunteers, everyone that is involved, and then push the sport back into the direction where it is supposed to go in order for longevity. You know, because if you look at scrutiny that our sport has on the internet, it doesn't help if you then have a working apparatus from a federation and judges and so-called trainers that are actually more pushing the sport into the scrutiny because of being uneducated, or plain and simple just don't care, you know, really just for the money and for the nice picture in those big arenas and all that kind of stuff. So for me, this here has massive potential, and I would like to put a lot of my energy, also unfortunately unpaid, but I would like to put as much energy in there as I can with still running my business that makes me money, to get this to a level so that I, with my business, can then make a switch and can say, like, okay, and now I have exactly the tools that I need for my students to become better horsemen, better owners, better parents, and just round better results of an equestrian that truly cares for the horse, for the sport, and wants to do right on all accounts.
That sounds awesome. Let me say real quick why I I was able, or I am able to do that, because because I because I don't care. I have nothing tied into USEF. I don't care about USEF. I told my full training kids and the parents, I said, listen, we're going to do this show circuit. We're going to do a whole new thing. Nobody's going to care about it in the beginning, but I tell you something, we're not going to go to USEF shows anymore. We go to our own shows now. And I promise we're going to make it real. We're going to build a circuit. We're going to have state championships, national championships, regional championships. All these things are going to come. And they trusted me, and they said, you know, it is what it is. You know, if you go for it, we're standing right behind you. So I have great parents, great kids, great support behind us. I'm probably one of the few that don't rely on USEF. I don't need to go to USEF shows. I don't need to do anything. I'm in a position where I can pretty much do whatever I want, because I have such a good network of people behind me and in all areas. So that probably gives me a lot more freedom than, you know, somebody who has, which is almost everybody has a business that is relying on going to these shows. Of course, then you have to be a lot more careful, and you cannot say whatever you want. I say whatever I want. I don't care. So that's why I was able to do it. And a lot of other people who probably have the right ideas and you know, wanted maybe to do something like that were not able to do it because they cannot go out for the beef. I'm in for the beef. I don't care. Bring the beef. it's fine.
Fantastic. I think we had
Um,
some really good questions here tonight. I think we covered a lot of good topics here.
Yeah, and we'll
I'm
also
just
put
gonna
that online.
I'm just gonna scroll through here if we missed something. But basically, like from my side as a closing statement, and I'm here at the horse show in Tampa right now, and like kind of like what I said, what kind of UDJC needs like right now is just the word of mouth. I have been talking to a lot of trainers and say like, hey, what's your phone number? Let me send you a price list. It's really cool. It's just around the corner in Orlando. You should give it a try, have a look, this and that. I don't know how many of those people are coming, but even if from the 50 trainers that I talk to here, one comes, I made a difference, and I made an impact on the success of UDJC. And I think that is just what needs to happen in this movement, that really people just say like, what do you have to lose? And I think that is the key aspect there. It's just like, what do you have to lose? You would go to a show anyways. If you don't like it, like if you go home and say like, oh, that was a waste of a weekend, then don't worry about it. Then you don't come back. But like legitimately, you have nothing to lose to stick your nose into something new, give it a try, and say like, oh shit, this is actually more fun than I thought it would be. And there, the traction just needs to come now from the people like that are aligned with the message and the idea that UDJC stands for, again, for horse welfare, proper rider education, and affordability, basically the three pillars there. If you know people that are looking for something like that or have been frustrating with the sport for a long time, I think just the word of mouth is what gets it into the vision that UDJC is looking for, to really get little barn shows where the kids can start and they get their education and their miles there. They don't have to go to Katy. There might be some other little Texas shows that they can go. And then once they say like, oh, we went to 20 UDJC shows, I feel so good about myself. I got such a confident rider. My horse is feeling great. Now we can go to a big show in Katy, or now we can go drive all the way down from Texas to Orlando for a special UDJC show, something like that, you know. But I think at the end of the day, it's just a community that really aligns like-minded people that are just having the best interest of the horse and the best interest of the sport in mind, that say like, you know what do you have to lose?
Yeah, it's very good last words. Thanks, Ronny. I think we're kind of through. Of course, you know, we can only scratch the surface in an hour and a half, but I think we have a lot of educational stuff on the web, or a lot of ideas on the website. And If you have a good idea for like the blog, if you even want to write something, like I know Bob, you write a lot of things. If if you want to send me something interesting, that blog is kind of open for everybody who's like-minded and has something to say. We would like to use it for that. Yeah, so but you can always still ask questions, send us messages, send us emails. We're happy to answer everything, and we'll probably do more of these Zoom calls. I think a lot of people had trouble with the link. I saw that in between now that the marketing girls flipped out because the link didn't work, and Zoom is such a shit show, to be honest. Anyways, well, thanks everybody. If nobody has a direct question anymore, I think we're gonna leave it at that, and I hope everybody has.
Are you gonna post the whole Q&A session somewhere?
Yes, I think we're going to post the whole thing on YouTube, on our channel, and then I guess Mackenzie is gonna cut out a few things, a few interesting things. Nothing you said, of course, because that wasn't that interesting, but like the stuff I said, we'll put that on.
You just can mute whatever. Yeah. But I think then a good idea for maybe some of the people that missed it, when they go on to YouTube where the video is posted and they just want to comment their questions there that they would have asked here, then we just can reply right there. So, nothing gets missed there.
Yeah. Any questions, shoot, and then we'll make sure we answer them.
Fantastic.
I think what you're doing is wonderful. It's filling a void that is so important to fill. I think it's just fantastic. I'm happy that I discovered you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I want to do whatever I can to help you.
Well,
thank you. That's what it's all about. It's the community of like-minded people that needs to get back together that I think kind of got pushed out over the last couple of years with those bigger barns and bigger shows and whatever, where you're kind of swimming a little bit upstream. I think this is now the time to present an alternative that goes into the right direction again, where a lot of people that have been frustrated with the industry for a long time can say like, okay, now we're doing it the right way.
Yeah, I think there are people that became total outsiders kind of and just said, okay, leave me alone. I'm just going to deal in my little bubble here and I don't even want to see or hear anything. But I think the majority of people are still kind of in a frustrated way acting within the old system. And they're like, well, I wish I could do something else, but there is like you, Ronny, kind of, oh, I wish there was something else, but there is nothing else and I can't, I think there's a lot of people like that who just need to see, okay, there is an alternative now. And now we actually have something to it feels like now with UDJC in the picture, finally, after all these years, there is actually something that is doing something. It was always like, I wish there was, but well, now there is. So now we have to grab that chance and run with it. And if it doesn't work, then then we try it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to work. We're going to be fine. And, we have great people in the community already and we'll just grow. And thanks everybody for helping to do that.
Super. Thanks, David. And thanks to all the guys behind the scenes at UDJC. And we'll get back together soon.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.